What's up, everybody? And today, by request, we have an episode where we talk about supporting large, delicate, or just generally hard to support objects. And this particular one has been upsized almost 500% from its original scale by request of a customer. This is actually the clothed version, but I'm going to show you guys this because this was such a challenging job. Some of these pieces were so intricately made and had some areas on them that had some issues, but different versions have different issues. I actually discovered some new issues with the ones that I'm showing you today. Now, this particular one, I of course am hollowing because of its particular size. It's going to be a decent amount of resin anyway because we're going to block some areas off, which I'm going to show you guys. And that should be cool too if anybody's interested in learning how to do blocking or how blocking can actually work, because I don't even think some folks don't even know what the heck that tab means. They're like, blockers. Essentially what that does is it prevents a piece of geometry from becoming hollow. And usually you want to do this in areas where you're going to find a resin trap or where you're going to find a big suction cup that you don't want one. And this will help you fix that. So when you take a look at the blockers tool, as we were just talking about, you'll see that you can create these geometrical blobs, square, cylinder, whatever, circle, that will then block off that particular area. And it works on the layer, so as you go up slice by slice, you can see where it's going to block, how eventually it's going to become hollow, where it moves out of the blocked area. And in some cases, you can have it so it will take that blocked area and eventually flow into an unblocked area, and that's okay, because all you did was you blocked off the portion of it that you didn't want to have to put holes in. And that's essentially what you're doing, because the hollowed areas all need holes. In order to reduce suction, in order to make the print work, you need to have holes in the right places in order to make that work. And I won't go into too much detail on that, but essentially you need holes. I don't want to put holes in everything. I don't like putting holes in stuff that have texture. So this piece right here that I'm fiddling with the kind of like a fur, almost, I don't want to put holes in on the bottom even, because I don't want to. If anybody wants to fill that, that's going to be a pain to try and replicate that texture if they want to. The other thing I noticed about this character is that the little bag on her waist has a permanent suction cup area in it, and you'll see as we do the blockers that you can't get rid of it. And I'll make note of that as we get to it. Now, folks, essentially what I'm doing here is I'm going back and forth, and I'm trying to make the best possible slope up into the cavity where the hollowing has actually got a hole. That way I don't have to continue making this piece solid past a certain point, and I can join it with the rest of the body that is already hollowed. And yes, the blocking process can take a little time to kind of go through and figure out the best way you want to lay things out. As I'm about to figure out here, this satchel doesn't actually have a way for me to fill it. Now, for some reason, I guess this was already hollow to begin with, and when I scaled up the figure, I just made a bigger pocket. So there already was a little slice there that was open, but I just made it much larger. So I can't block it, and as we'll see later, I won't be able to put holes in it either. But we're just going to have to deal with it being there. And it's not a terrible thing. It just means that when I'm done printing it, I have to drill a hole in the bottom and I have to drain it because it's going to have resin in it for sure. And you don't want to leave that in there. So it's kind of a bad design, actually, if you want to think about it. But I did not make the model. I will put the model credit in the description as I usually do. This model was made by an artist by the name of Jiggly Sticks. Become quite familiar with their work lately. If you're not getting the idea, essentially you're going to use these different geometrical shapes to create solids where there once was a hollow to prevent as much resin trapping as possible in those areas. You may still wind up with some. Usually if the pocket's small enough it fuses, so you don't have to worry about it. But you don't want big pockets of suction. You don't want that problem going on. So this process, though tedious, will help you eliminate a lot of that. So keep that in mind. You do have to kind of go through it a little bit at a time, and you do kind of have to go, bit by bit and go, okay, I need to block this, I need to block an arm, I need to block this arm, I need to block this weapon. And this really, of course, is determined by how thick you want your hollowing, and of course where you're going to put your drain holes. And the drain holes bit will come up in a moment. So I will just finish this up, and then we will get into the drain holes and then move on into the actual supporting of this figure. Now this is an entire figure. The only thing she is missing is her tail and her base, but this is the entire piece. There's nothing else to snap on here. The delicate bit is hanging from her face. She actually has I don't know what you'd call that, a little piercing that's going from her nose to her ear with a chain. That chain is free hanging for quite a bit on the side of her face. And that is the challenge part of this particular build, having to do this like this in one piece. Now I could have gone in, I could have probably cut the arms and keyed them in, and I could have cut the hands off maybe. That really honestly just would have created more work. And I wanted to try and do it in one piece. This is how the art was submitted to me, so this is how I'm going to try. Now, of course, again, any area that you're getting big hollow bits, but you don't have drain holes, block them and make sure that they are not creating mass amounts of suction, like the chest area here. This is important, so keep that in mind, always. That's what blocking is really for. Okay, now we're adding holes, and obviously logical spots. We're going to put them in the feet. And probably put like a smaller one there for air. And then we're going to put one in the back of the heel. Down there. And I'm also going to put some in the other foot too. One there, one there. And the heel. We can also put one in the tail socket. It's not a bad spot for one. And then we can put some around the tail socket. Now this was me messing around with the bag, and now figuring out that I absolutely cannot do anything about it. I cannot make a drain hole. It just wouldn't let me. No size deviation. Just wasn't happening. Not really sure why though, because I did have it in an area where it definitely wasn't interrupting any of the geometry around it. The only thing I could think of is it was cutting through the bottom, but that's what I wanted it to do, because I wanted to try to avoid having to drill holes in it afterwards when it printed, because that's essentially what's going to happen. It's going to fill up with resin while it prints. It's going to make a suction cup like crazy, which is going to pull on that side, which means I'm going to have to think about that and support that a little bit heavier, and then I'm going to have to drill holes in it to drain it. And it's funny because when you look at the interior, it doesn't actually show as a hollow bit except for that little tiny cut right there. And yeah, it doesn't matter where I put these things. So yeah, unfortunately, it's just sometimes when the models are designed, there's just places in them that just won't work. Now, I don't know, you could try maybe bringing it into mesh mixer, filling this blender, filling it in, if you wanted to alter it. Again, I don't want to make more work where I know the printer can handle it. It's a small amount of suction for a small amount of time. The unfortunate thing is I have to clean it up by drilling the holes and then draining it and patching it. Whereas if the holes were there already, I wouldn't have to bother with half of that. So just annoying at the end of the day, but otherwise, I mean, it's a tolerable nuisance, I suppose. So the rest of this model has quite a number of other challenges, regardless of this little pouch problem. Eventually, when I decided to move away from the pouch, and I do apologize, I really was trying to figure out if there was a way to manipulate a hole in there. Yeah, there isn't. Um, we will get to a point where I'm settled on the way that it's going to drain and everything should be a okay. We have this little strappy thing there on the side that definitely presents an issue, and we have the other strappy thing on the other side, and then of course we're going to have these horn bits that hang down, and as I said before, there's the face piercing. So what we're going to want to do now that we've done our holes, now that we've done our blockers, and we've finished off that work, we can go ahead and export this model and have it as a static STL with all of this done. And I've gone over in other videos why I do it that way. But essentially it's to save the integrity of the holes. There's numerous reasons for it, but I prefer to do it that way. Once we bring the model back in, we will be able to start supporting it, and I will go over the different ways that I will handle different types of hollowing and supporting. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to share with you guys a little secret that sometimes it's okay to use auto support. Yeah, that's right. We're going to use auto support. And the reason why I'm going to use it is because it's going to support the interior of this model. And then I'm going to remove all the supports from the exterior of the model. So the first thing we'll do is we'll do our rafting as usual. And I like my particular types of rafts. And then we'll go over to the supporting. go over to the tabs, and I'm going to set up some of my particular ratios that I want there. I may leave it on interval, maybe not. I might keep it undone for this particular, just because of the fact that I don't like the way interval works sometimes. Interval has this, I don't know, it's sporadic. I feel like it works sometimes the way you want it to, and other times it does not. This chain on her face here is what I'm talking about. This is the piece de resistance, I think, to this particular model. Um, Even when she's big, this big, that's real fragile. When she's small, it's like a hair. When she's big, I mean, it's still. Anyway, so like I said, auto supports, right? Boom. You're like, ooh, that's not going to work. Of course not. And I'm not going to do it that way. But what we are going to do is we're gonna leave the inside of this alone, and we're going to take the supports off of the outside because we don't want those. We want what it did on the inside because I don't want to really spend an extra half an hour to an hour doing the inside of my model's interior supporting. I'd rather just let the auto support take care of that. It will do a decent enough job where you won't have to worry about it and you can move on. The only annoying part is you do have to remove 99.9%. See, look at this little tree trunk there stuck in the side. 99.9% of the supports on the outside of the model, they are just not going to be where you want them to be. They're not going to be grouped well. They're going to be in your way when you're trying to finish the job. So, yeah, unfortunately, you just have to go through, take the time, and remove the exterior ones. But you'll see the interior ones I'm going to keep because this did me a solid favor by getting rid of all that extra work. Now, I'm not going to make you guys sit here and watch me pluck away all these additional supports, but I am going to go ahead and do that, and then we will cut back for a minute, and I will show you some of the progress, and then we're going to do islands searching on this, and you'll see what the difference is. All right, as you can see, this has a ton of islands. There's well over 348. Wow, 348. Um, there's a lot of islands. Anyway, the interior supports I left alone, but I left maybe a handful of exterior supports, and some of those I might actually remove still and replace. But I'm not going to bore you with supporting every single island because honestly, we've done island supporting a bunch. And essentially, my only suggestion is to support the islands the way you would support them. Use the style of support that you feel adequate for your printer and its resin. The supporting sizes that I'm using are shown there on the right. You can see the tip diameter, tip length, and diameter for the bar. My minis are quite mini. It's not the smallest support ever, but it's small enough. And you're probably thinking, well, this thing's huge. And I'm like, well, yes, it is, but it's also hollow. A good percentage of it, more than 50% of it, is hollow. So I'm not fully concerned with overall weight or mass. What I am concerned with are anchor points. And the reason I use such small tips is because I don't want to cause too much damage on the model. I find that anything above a 0.22 to a 3.3 is really too harsh and it tends to make pock marks more. So I try to keep under a 0.33 if I can. 0.44 is as heavy as I'll go, and actually that's really really heavy. And I do have heavier high like sizes like a 0.55, 6.6, all the way up 7. And I can go higher, but only for extremely large stuff, and it is definitely going to damage the surface that it touches for sure. It is going to leave a mark when you pull that support away or clip that support away, regardless of what you do to remove it. I'm going to go ahead and finish the island supporting on this, but first let's go ahead and go over the way we're going to support this little necklace chain. Actually, I don't know, no, it's connected to her horn, not her ear. So the way I'm supporting this is I'm being a little light on the hooks, and I'm using minis along the edges there, bridging those across, and then I'm going to use some of the, again, the same size, the light supports on the discs that are kind of hanging off there, with some minis attached to those as well to give it a little springiness while it prints, so it has some extra support. The reason I use those mini supports like that is because they kind of act like a cushion, where they kind of take some of the push and the pull, and so it kind of helps with these really light parts where they would tend to just pop off from the pressure of the build in the FEP. So yeah, just when you support something like this, obviously it's just a delicate job. So use the lights sparingly, full size lights, and then use your minis wherever possible to join the rest of that. If you have like one bigger light in the middle and you have a bunch of minis connected to it, you create like a mini tree. That's fine. That'll work really well. That won't cause nearly as much trouble pulling off. You won't have the issues or worry of damage, snapping, because this is again, delicate part. Um, and the more you take attention to detail on where you're supporting it, how you're supporting it, uh, manually here, the better it's going to come out. And especially if you're doing this professionally, if you're looking to make this stuff for people, just keep that in mind. That they want quality. People want quality prints. They don't want stuff that looks like it's full of pock marks and holes. And that's one of the major differences that we try to strive for. Is when I give you something, you're going to get something that's going to be really well supported and very well cleaned up. There is all the islands supported, and as you can see, I haven't even braced these yet because I might not brace every single area. Reason being for that is because these supports are so clustered together in some of these spots, they don't really need it. As you can see, they are close, so bracings won't even really matter. What you do want to do at this point is you want to kind of go, you want to grab your layer slider there on the side, and you want to go layer by layer, slice by slice, if you will, and you want to start doing your actual technical supporting. And the reason I call this technical supporting is because this is where you start to dig into the actual support and look at each part of it as you go up, and you kind of act as the printer, and you're like, all right, am I going to be able to do this? No. Okay, I need to add supports. Is this too supported? Okay, I need to remove supports. Is this not supported well enough? Okay, great. I need to add one here, 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 here. So you're going to see that. I'm not going to speed this portion of it up. This is going to go in real time. And I'm not going to talk over this. I'm just going to let you kind of guys, you guys watch the workflow that I take as I work on the model. So essentially, by not talking over it, I'm really letting you kind of just observe how I work on a particular piece like this. So anyway, share your thoughts and comments on this episode. I know it's a long one. It's almost an hour, I believe. It's actually about, pretty much is an hour. It's 59 minutes and 23 seconds. So this is a very long episode, which is why I chose not to talk through it. Because you guys don't want to listen to me talk for an hour. Anyway, this will be it from me for a bit. I will pop back in a little bit later and talk about proximity. But for the most part, enjoy watching the workflow on this particular type of challenge, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks. There is one thing I do not talk about very much in my other videos, and that's proximity. Now in this case, we found 4, so we go to our view, we go to support, we go to show only supports in error. So I can see 3, which means 1's on the inside. So we'll fix these first, and then we'll address the one on the inside. It's interesting, sometimes you'll fix one by fixing the others, or it'll just re-register and automatically detect that it was not actually an error. Sometimes proximity error also means it could be clustered too close, or the tip could be in an area where it's going to get fused to a part. And that takes care of those. So then if we run that again, so we'll take it down to 1. We can do the same thing, just go error. And then we'll look up and down. And as I said, this one's definitely going to be on the inside. And there it is. So we'll go ahead and fix that. And then if we check the proximity again, it should tell us 0. That is pretty much it. Once you did your proximity check, once you're sure that your supporting is where you want it, once you're sure that your islands are supported the way you want them to, you are ready to go. So again, just make sure that you've checked everything, you've done your island checks, you've done, your 20 micron layer, island check, and you've done your 50 and your 35 and whatever, if you want to do it at multiple levels. I will actually do it at 3 levels sometimes just to see what the differences are, and it will actually catch islands at each one of those different intervals. I actually did a video on that. The guys at Table Flip kind of discussed that as well. I don't know. Again, it's a weird thing that it wouldn't do it, but what it's essentially doing is as the layers get thinner, it's finding more and more islands because of the fact that there's going to be less and less material joining it at that layer. So it makes sense, and I guess it's not something that I thought of originally, but man, when I figured that's a great trick, let me tell you. And again, I don't even like to call it a trick or a hack or a glitch or anything, because essentially it's just a feature of the software. If I change it to 20 microns, it's going to search at 20 microns. If I change it to 35, it's going to search at 35. If I change it to 50, it's going to search at 50. So there you go. I mean, essentially, that's the basics of it. Again, once you've done that, go ahead. You can refine some of your additional supporting if you want to. If you find that maybe you find a couple areas that are bare, maybe you look and you go, oh, I forgot about this spot. Now's the time to do that, because now you've done pretty much everything else. You've done your multi-island check. You've done your proximity checks. You're good to go on most things. So you just want to make sure, okay, did I really get everything? Am I good to go? Good to go? Do I need to worry about any particular area? So now would be the time for that. And then we'll go ahead and do the slice, and then I will see y'all at the other side. Well, that is it for this gigantic episode, and I appreciate it for those of y'all that made it through to the end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. For those of you that learned or gleaned something from this, great. I am happy for that. I will let you all know if we plan on doing any other episodes like this one that are maybe a bit more in depth. If you guys want to hear me talk more, let me know. I don't necessarily know if you want to hear me more or hear me less, but in most cases, what I'm trying to pass along here is knowledge on workflow methodology. I know that we're not all printing the same things. I know that we're not all printing the same objects. I know that we all face different challenges and the different types of stuff that we want to print off of our printers. And resin can be a cruel mistress when it comes to making mistakes. My hope is that my methodology, my workflows can teach y'all something, and you can walk away from each one of these episodes learning just a tiny little bit more and helping you kind of achieve that higher level of quality in your own prints. Anyway, thank y'all for watching again so much. Appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, please do. Please hit that like button. Leave us some comments. Let us know what you think. And obviously, as always, hit the bell if you want notifications when we release our episodes. Thank y'all so much for watching. See you soon.